So you want to publish your research paper in a Scopus index journal, but you're struggling, maybe your paper has been rejected, you don't know how to choose the right journal, you don't know what the reviewers are looking for. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to publish your papers in Scopus index journals, and not just any Scopus index journals, but those really good ones with higher impact factors. And I'm going to share with you 3 secrets that you need to understand in order to be able to do that, to publish your papers in Scopus index journals on a regular basis. So let's dive right into it. Now, these 3 secrets or keys are really based on me coaching over 400 PhD students and researchers at Academic English Now, where we basically help PhD students and researchers like yourself publish papers in Scopus index journals. And it's also based on my own personal experience of having published papers in Scopus index journals. So without further ado, what are these 3 secrets to publishing in Scopus index journal? You're probably wondering. The first thing is having a high impact research topic. Now, if your idea is bad, you will never be able to publish in a really good journal. No matter how well you write it, no matter how well you structure it, no matter anything else that you do to your paper, if you don't have a really good research topic to start with, then I'm sorry, but it will be very, very difficult or impossible to publish in a Scopus index journal. So everything starts with a really good topic. And this is exactly what I show to my clients as well on Research Paper Mastery, clients who want to publish several papers in Scopus index journals every single year. So how do you choose the right topic? Well, there are basically 3 elements to choosing the right topic. The first one is having a research gap. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into what a research gap is in just a second, but bear with me. So number 1 is having a research gap. This is absolutely fundamental. If you don't have clarity on what a research gap is, if you don't know what a research gap is, then it's likely that your topic is really not suitable for high impact Scopus index journals. Now, the second really important element that you want to also be looking at is having insights from other fields. So very often a lot of researchers are stuck, in their own field, and they have tunnel vision, and they're we following the crowd. There are trends in research as well, where somebody publishes a really good paper and then other researchers are following in their footsteps, and we just focus on this one narrow idea and don't know what people in other disciplines are doing as well. And this is a problem if you want to have innovative ideas, because if you just follow what everybody else is doing in your discipline, if you've got sort of tunnel vision and you narrowly focus on, this one particular thing that everybody else is doing in your discipline, then, you're just going to be doing what everybody else is doing, which isn't very innovative. And therefore, your topic will be less impactful and less likely to be published in a really good journal. And I'll show you in more depth how to get those insights from other fields. But that's really the second element. Now, the third element that you need to get right of your topic is also having some sort of practical, personal, professional experience that can further add to your topic. So, a lot of the topics that I have been able to publish in really good journals in my own field in teaching English, a lot of those ideas for that research came from my own experience of, for example, writing course books, of teaching English, actually, being in the trenches and doing the thing that I'm researching. Because when you're doing the thing, you will have other insights than, let's say, researchers or academics locked up in their ivory towers in the universities have. So if you're able to go out there and understand what's happening in the field outside of the academia, that can really give you very cool ideas for research. Like, to give you one example, I was involved in writing a course book for teaching English. And as I was writing this course book, it became apparent to me that, everybody that I was working with were basically white native speakers, either from the UK or the US. And this really sparked my interest, and I wanted to see whether this was really a trend that, basically most course book authors that were hired to write course books were actually white native speakers from the UK or the US. The idea came from my practical experience, and then I started researching it. I did the literature review, and then, the whole thing. And it turned out that nobody in my field had researched that before, and it turned out to be a very impactful topic for a series of papers, actually. So that's the third element of your topic that is very, very important.
Just as a reminder, as I mentioned, there are 4 types of a research gap. There's lack or insufficient research, controversy in your field or lack of understanding, limitations of previous research, and specific problems that need resolving. And really the research gap is the first thing that we're going to be looking at when reading the literature. And what you want to do is really focus on 10 to 30 studies, and they should be recent studies. So look at, the last 5, maximum 10 years. Don't look any further. You want to be looking at the most recent stuff. And really you want to be, reading them, but very quickly and filling in this table. So what research gap did the researchers identify in that paper? That's typically in the introduction, because if you're reading something recent, let's say from this year, and that the researchers have identified a specific big research gap, it's likely that you can continue addressing a similar gap. It can give you ideas for what you can do. In bullet points, 3-4 bullet points, what were the materials and methods that were used? Because again, if you start seeing patterns, you might notice some limitations in terms of materials and methods and things like that, right? What limitations do the researchers themselves acknowledge in the paper? That's one of the fastest way of finding the research gap, and this is usually in the discussion or the conclusion section, so you want to jump right there. And then suggestions for future research, and again, this is in the discussion or the conclusion section, and this is great for finding ideas for your own research, because if you're reading a paper that was published this year, last year, and the researchers are suggesting what future research should do, well, they're talking directly to you and what you should do in your paper. And it's likely other people haven't done it yet because this very paper has been published this year, for example. So you want to be basically completing this table, and then you can dig into specific types of research gaps. For example, lack or insufficient studies. So as you've read this literature and taken notes on it, you want to be thinking about questions, where have most studies been conducted? What or who has previous research mostly studied? Which subtopics have they studied? Which method or tools have they used most frequently? And this will give you an idea for a lack of research. So for example, it might turn out that, most studies have been conducted in Europe, and there is nothing, let's say, in Latin America. So therefore, it means that you should probably focus on Latin America, right? You're identifying a research gap like this. The same can be done with the second type of research gap, which is controversy or lack of understanding. Maybe studies are offering conflicting results. Maybe there are some sort of disagreements. Maybe there's some sort of lack of clarity, right? So to give you a specific example, maybe one researcher shows that there is a positive effect of this new drug. Another research shows that there is no significant effect, while yet another shows that there are some significant negative effects, right? So there's clearly a controversy, conflicting results, and it is unclear whether this drug actually helps or it doesn't help. And that's where you come in, and you can try to clarify these conflicting results, right? So that's again how you can identify a research gap. You also want to look at limitations of previous studies, okay? That's why I asked you here to start writing the materials and methods in the table in bullet points. And then you can start writing limitations of previous studies. A very common one is small sample size, So maybe, you're finding that in this topic that you're researching, most studies have like 10 participants, 5, 6. So this probably means that there is a need for larger sample size for a quantitative study. Okay? So again, that's another type of research gap. And maybe there are there are problems that need resolving, sort of like practical problems. These practical problems can be to do with the methodology, it can be with certain practices outside of academia, like this example, right? That, knee replacement surgeries are expensive and often ineffective. And you want to be thinking, so what? Okay, we have this problem, but is this problem worth solving? Well, yes, because there are over 50,000 people get knee replacements. So clearly, if so many people get these knee replacements and the surgeries are expensive and ineffective, what you want to be looking is a more cost-effective and a more effective way of conducting those knee replacements. That would be very impactful, both in practice and in terms of research. So that's another type of research gap. Now, aside from the research gap, which is what everybody is doing, you want to get ideas from other fields as well. This is something I discuss in a lot of detail on Research Paper Mastery. This can really give you an edge over other researchers in your field. Why? Because most researchers just kind of stay in their own very, very narrow field. You have tunnel vision, basically. But if you open yourself up to insights from other fields, let's say psychology, economics, philosophy, education, and so on, this can really broaden your focus, and it can open your eyes really to amazing new ideas. I'll give you an example here. So in other fields, there's this phenomenon of homophilous hiring, where basically people are much more likely to hire people who are similar to them. So for example, women are more likely to hire women, white men will hire white men, and so on. Like people with a Scottish accent are more likely to hire people with a Scottish accent, if you see what I mean. Now, how is this related to my field? Well, I've noticed that in my field there are very few course books writers who are non-native speakers of English, and likewise most editors are native speakers as well. So now the question is it possible that native speaker editors tend to hire other native speakers to be course book writers? I mean, this is a pretty interesting hypothesis based on the work that other people have done in other fields, and they've already proven that homophilous hiring does exist. Now, I'm using this idea from another field in my own field, and I'm also tapping into a huge research gap, because nobody has done that at all. Nobody has even thought of doing it, because few people kind of read that other research from other fields, if you see what I mean. So this gives me a huge edge where I can really just tap into an untapped market, if you will. Right? So that's something that you want to be doing as you kind of read, listen to, watch materials from other fields. Do it for fun. You don't have to read academic papers per se. There's lots of interesting podcasts, there's lots of interesting popular science books and stuff like this, YouTube videos that other researchers do. There's all sorts of interesting stuff, and you want to be noting down these things as they come up. And then a really good thing to do is as well your personal or professional experience, and you can use that, and that's an example I already gave just before in the video, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But having that kind of professional experience in the field again gives you an edge, because most researchers are just stuck in the academia, and they know what other academicians are doing, but not necessarily what's happening in the field. Right? If you don't have and can't get that sort of personal professional experience, you can ask people in the field who are not in the academia what's going on, right? So that's a really, really good thing. Okay, so that's really how you would find a high impact topic, and that's again, if you want to access to these materials, book a free one-to-one consultation. The link is right below this call. They come from my program Research Paper Mastery.
The second secret or key to publishing your research in Scopus index journals is having the right structure and the right language. I just want to address heads-on a myth that people have, which is that publishing papers in different fields involves a completely different structure and completely different language. This is absolutely not true. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience of coaching over 400 PhD students and researchers in all sorts of fields, from theology through quantum physics to biology, chemistry, you name it. We've had clients on Academic English Now in that field. And 80% of papers, be it experimental papers or systematic review papers or meta-analyses, are structured in exactly the same way. Granted, there is that 20% that will be different and will be more specific to your discipline, but 80% of the paper is exactly the same. Think of it as an iceberg, like this, right? Where, sort of 20% is above water and is visible, and that's the visible differences that everybody keeps on focusing on, saying that, yeah, the paper in my field is completely different, what you teach would never work in my field at all. But what people forget about is that, 80% of the iceberg is below water and they don't see it. And that 80%, that fundamental structure and the fundamental language that is used throughout all disciplines in research papers or systematic review papers and so on, is almost exactly the same. So what you want to do is you need to develop a proven structure and a template for a paper that will also include the most useful language that can be used in that particular section of the paper. And I'm going to show you a template like that we use with our clients on Academic English Now. And then the second thing that you want to do as you're going through a template like this, you want to start adjusting it to the purposes not of your specific field, but rather of the specific journal where you want to be publishing it. Because the difference is really lying not so much between the fields, but really even between journals. There are small differences in terms of formatting. Again, these differences are small. They are, you know, the sort of the 20 or even less % of the iceberg above water, but there are some differences. So as you have this template that I'm going to show to you in a second, you need to start adjusting it following, you know, what you see in a specific journal. And the same goes for the language. So what you want to be doing is you want to be extracting language from papers. As you're reading papers in that specific journal, in your discipline overall, you want to be extracting useful language. So for example, you know, let's say you're reading an introduction to a research paper. How do people state the research gap? How do they start the paper? How do they state the importance of the topic? You know, you're reading the methodology. How do people present the data analysis techniques? What phrases do they use to present the results? And so on. And you want to be, you know, creating a bank of phrases like that. You know, I can give it to you and I'll show it to you, but you can also start doing it yourself right now. There's nothing stopping you from analyzing the papers in your discipline or in a specific journal and creating a template structure and plugging in the language that published researchers are already using in your field. And then, you know, sort of 80% of the work will be done. You just need to add your content. So let's look at a template like that we use with our clients on Research Paper Mastery, so you can see in practice what I'm talking about here.
So yeah, like the second secret really to publishing in high impact papers is, you know, it's the language, it's the structure, right? And this can be very easily achieved with a blueprint. And I've got a blueprint like this for you. Again, it comes from my program, Research Paper Mastery. If you're interested, schedule a free consult right below. We'll see if it's a good fit. But it's sort of a blueprint that works for almost all fields, regardless of what you're doing. You obviously want to adjust it, and I give specific instructions on how to adjust it here. But really, if you just follow this blueprint, you're already going to have a really coherent story. And a coherent story is exactly what reviewers are looking for in a paper. They want a coherent story. So I'm not going to go over all the details in here, but you can see it's basically broken down into small chunks. So there's the bigger sections like introduction, theoretical framework, methodology, and then I break it down into specific elements and the specific order in which in 90% of the papers they occur in, right? So in the introduction, to dive deeper into one of those, it's importance of the topic, brief literature review, research gap, research aim. You know, these four will always be there. If you don't believe me, open any paper, any empirical paper in your field, and you will see this order, I guarantee. And there are two optional elements, like to show the main contributions of your paper and the structure of your paper that can come after the aim. And following a blueprint like this can really give you a coherent story, and it also speeds up your writing tremendously. It speeds it up because you know kind of what to write, in what order, and you know what the purpose is. This is going to be huge help, and I'll definitely encourage you, to pause this video, take a deeper look at this blueprint, and adapt it to your purposes, and obviously if you want to download it, if you want to get access to it, if you want to work with us to help you to publish a paper in a high impact journal, I'm going to schedule a free one-to-one consult. The link is right below the video.
The third secret to getting your paper published in a Scopus index journal is choosing the right journal. And I know this sounds obvious, but this is where a lot of people get it wrong. And I see it time and time again with our clients on PhD Accelerator and Research Paper Mastery, where they've got a really well written paper. It's gone through our review process, our coaches have given feedback on it, the supervisor has put the green light on it as well. The paper is good to go. But if you choose the wrong journal, then the paper will be rejected straight away. And the worst part about it is that you're wasting a lot of time, because sometimes the editor of the journal might keep it for a month, for 2 months, before they just tell you, well, the paper is out of the scope of this journal, we're not interested in it, sorry, right? So Choosing the right journal is absolutely fundamental so that you don't waste your precious time, you avoid silly rejections of your paper, and you can get published in a good journal much faster. So I'm going to show you the exact process as well that we use to help them choose the right journals and avoid rejections. But before I do that, I just want to highlight to you that there is a process to it and there is a science to it. So it's not a case of luck or bad luck. It's not a case of bad reviewers or angry editors. I know that there are, Facebook groups where people just rant about stupid reviewers and how the reviewers hate other researchers and the papers. But really, it's down to a process and proven steps that you can follow as well in order to choose the right journal and minimize your chances of getting rejected. Will this work all the time, 100% for every single paper? Of course not. That nothing like a magic pill exists, If it did, everybody would be publishing in Scopus Index journals. But I promise you that if you follow this process I'm going to share with you on the screen in just a second, you will really reduce the number of rejections that you get, especially, those silly editor rejections where, the paper is just not of interest of the journal. So let's see how this is done.
As I said, the third really important thing is choosing the right journal. How do you do that? Well, there's a science to it, and I've got step-by-step instructions here to you that if you follow them, you'll be able to really find the right fit. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to look at the reference list of the paper that you've written, and you want to look at the journals that you're referring to, right, in that reference list. And what you want to do is basically write down how many times each journal appears. So you want to put the journal name here and then how many times it appears. Why do you do that? Well, because if you're referring to papers from a specific journal many times, let's say 5 or more times, well, this clearly means that what you're doing is a good fit for that journal, right? Because you're referring to similar work. They've already published work that is similar, either methodologically speaking or in terms of topic, right? So that journal might be a good fit for what you're doing. And really one big reason for rejections, especially desk rejections from editors, is choosing the wrong fit of a journal. Okay, so I'd encourage you to pause the video and do this right now. You want to then rank them in the frequency order. So in here, you have journals that you're referring to 2, 5, 10 times. And in here, you just want to put them in order from the journal that you referred to most times in your paper to the one that you've referred to least time in your paper. And, you just want to put the journals that you've referred to at least twice. If you've referred to a journal once, it doesn't make sense to put it here. Yeah, and then I would also pick, like important papers that you've referred to that are similar to yours, and look at their reference list and try to do the same exercise that you've done here, but for those other 3 to 5 papers. That will really help you as well. It can expand your list slightly and you might find other journals, or it can just confirm your choices and maybe, the journals that you've ranked here, they are also referred to by other researchers in your field. And then what you want to do is look at the first 5 to 10 journals from your list above. And you want to go to the websites and consider the scope, right? So you'd put the journals in here, so you just copy and paste it from point 2 and then write down the scope, okay? So you want to look at what topics is the journal interested in, what types of paper are they interested in, what they don't want to see, is it just experimental papers, and they will give you a lot of details about the scope of the journal. So you just want to copy and paste it from the website into here. And then you just want to answer yes or no whether it matches the scope of your paper, because if it doesn't, then you want to delete that journal from your list. And then from, in here you might have 5 to 10 journals, and you want to choose 3 to 5 whose scope matches your study the best, okay? And then you want to put them in here, okay? And then you want to look at the impact factor, right? The current impact factor and the 5-year impact factor, because there's usually a difference. And you want to put also how highly ranked it is in your discipline. So there are rankings of journals per discipline, and you want to put that here because the impact factor can be misleading. For example, in my field, in linguistics, in teaching English, like an impact factor of 5 is really, really high. It's probably like the top 5 journals would have that. But let's say in medicine, an impact factor of 5 is nothing. Okay, so you also want to look at the rank in your discipline. And then I'd encourage you to as well look at whether it's open access, because if you can publish in an open access journal, it increases the reach of your paper tremendously, and you will get so many more citations. It's really a great option. And obviously from there, considering the impact factor rank in your discipline and whether it's open access, you choose the one journal that you want to submit your paper to.
Now, if you've enjoyed this video, but you would like to get more personalized help publishing papers in top Scopus Index journals, then schedule a free one-to-one consultation with our expert advisors, where they're going to go over, your current challenges and struggles to really identify the root cause of the problems. And then we're going to outline your goals and propose a simple but proven action plan that you can take and we can help you with, so that you start publishing more often in better journals. And if you want to schedule that completely free one-to-one consultation, the link is right below this video.